opt-out, and there was the opt-out there. That's really what this conversation is for. And I'm just going to say personally to everyone that's here, my two children, which are both in perfect grades, 4th grade and 7th grade, are not opting out of this test. All right, I understand the concerns that a lot of people have. It was my decision that if there's any bump that's going to be given with this test, and I feel there has to be, and the chancellor has pretty much already said it would be, that it would be more beneficial for my children to take this test than to not take the test. But we're here to answer those types of questions, and everyone gets to make their own decision about that. So I'm going to push the part aside a regular agenda for the meeting. Councilman, any objection to that?
No.
And we're going to go straight into questions and answers. So I'd like to introduce you to Shael Suransky.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I came, I think, almost 3 years ago the first time, and at that meeting, we were just beginning the process of preparing our schools for the Common Core. And then again last year, I was in Staten Island at an event together with John King, where we had about 200 parents, I think, in one of the auditoriums, I think up on Mark Avenue. And so this is now a continuation of that conversation. And I have to say I'm very impressed by the turnout. And I know that it's not easy to get here, and you're here because you care about your kids and you care about their education. And I want to make sure we answer every single question folks have. Let me just spend 5 minutes giving you some background, then we'll dive right into whatever you need to know. So this initiative started as a result of a problem that the National Governors Association identified, that too many young people across the country were graduating high school and they would go to college and they would drop out of college, or they would graduate and go into the labor force and they could not find a good job with the skills that they had. When I was born, basically 1 in 3 jobs in this country required a college education. And at this point, by the time that our current high school students graduate high school, it's going to be 2 in 3 jobs require a college education. The economy is changing. And even to get a good job in one of the technical fields, you need at least a 2-year associate's degree. What we're seeing with our kids as they graduate high school is too many of them go into CUNY and other programs, and they end up taking remedial classes because they don't have the right skills to compete in college and they can't function independently. One of the reasons I believe that this shift that we've been working on for the last 3 years is good for kids is I think it's always good when we challenge our kids to shoot higher. And it's always good when we ask kids to write more, when we ask them to really use their minds well and do critical thinking, when we ask them to solve real-world problems and apply their knowledge, when we ask them to read texts that are complex and difficult, not just fiction, but also nonfiction. And I think that the focus that these standards have actually brought to the work that's happening in our classrooms is positive. I was a teacher, I was a principal. I know that things don't change fast, that you have to build capacity in order for it to be meaningful. And so that's why when we began this work now in 2010, we started small and we said every kid in every school should get exposed to 1 unit of curriculum aligned to the Common Core in that first year. And then in literacy and in math. And we started talking about it at meetings like this and educating folks and working with teachers on what do they have to change and how they teach. We've spent over $125 million since then, and it's energized what's happening in our classrooms. When I walk around and look at what kids are doing today, it's beginning to shift. And so the test is why we're here tonight, because that's coming up next week. But I want to be really clear. This is not about a test. It's not about whether or not you do well on this test. This is about, are we going to deliver for our young people in this city a real education which gives them real options when they graduate high school? And in order to do that, we have to start early, and we have to ask a lot of what our students have to do while they're in their classes. And that connects to the test in the sense that no matter how you cut it, the state exam is important. It's important to kids, it's important to parents, it's important to teachers. Our teachers want to see their kids do well. And so we can't ignore that. And if the state exam is not pushing us to do the deeper kind of work kids need in order to be ready for college and for a good job, then it's probably pushing in the wrong direction. And a lot of parents have complained over the years and said these bubble tests don't work for us, we don't like them, they're narrowing the curriculum, they're just testing basic skills. It means that we're not doing the creative work that we want our kids doing, we're not seeing the projects we want our kids doing. And actually this shift is partially an answer to those concerns. Because the tests that we're likely to see this spring and the ones that come after it do push on those deeper skills. They do ask kids to look at something and ask the question, do I really understand what I'm reading? And can I take that and make an argument based on that? Because when you get into a job, no one's going to ask, how do you feel? What's your opinion about this? They want to know the facts. They want to know if you're going to make a statement like the one that I just made, that I believe this is a good thing, they want to know why. They want evidence. And you have to be able to provide that evidence. And so our young people for too long haven't been challenged in that way. And that's part of this change. So let me stop there. And I know that the questions that Sam had shared beforehand relate a lot to, well, what do parents do on the testing day if they're not comfortable with their kids taking this exam? And so I'll briefly share with you what the state rules are on this. And this, again, as Sam mentioned, is not something that is determined by the Department of Education. There are state rules and federal rules that determine this. There is no formal opt-out under the state law. There have been parents in the past who have kept their kids home, and about 120 parents last year did that across the system out of several 100,000. And that has happened, and there were no sort of retributions that were taken against those parents. There are some consequences that folks need to be aware of because these exams are used in a number of ways. The first question a lot of folks have asked is about promotion. This year, we will be looking at the kids who are really struggling on this exam. So we'll look at the raw scores, how many questions did you get right, and the bottom 10% of students are students that we'll recommend to go to summer school. But I want to be clear that that was about the same number that went last year and the year before. We are not looking to send huge numbers of additional kids to summer school or hold huge numbers of kids back because we know this is a tougher exam. And we know that it's going to take some time for folks to adjust to it and to learn to do this work well. And not everyone's going to pass it the first year. But we also know that summer school is a real benefit for students that are struggling to get the basics. And we do have a lot of those kids across the city, and we need to make sure they have academic intervention services and supports to meet their needs. Now, if you're unable to take that exam, if you're sick, you're absent for whatever reason, and you don't have an exam score, or if you failed the exam at a certain level, we do a portfolio. And the superintendent and the principal review that portfolio and make recommendations based on a qualitative assessment of student work. And that's a process we've had in place since 2004, and that process is the same this year as it's been any other year. And so for kids who don't have an exam score, and we're looking at the promotion decision, that promotion decision will be based on the portfolio. The second area where there's an impact is on attending screened middle schools or screened high schools. There are some schools around the city that in order to get in, they look at your test scores to see how you did. Now, in general, kids are not going to be disadvantaged this year in those processes because everyone's in the same boat. Everyone is taking this new exam. And so we're expecting that fewer kids are going to get high scores. And so when the screen schools look at kids' scores, they're going to be looking at who did the best because it's reasonable to expect that stronger students, even though they might not do as well in this one as they have done on the one in a prior year, they'll still do better than kids who are weaker. And so that'll be the data that the screen schools will look at as they make those decisions. And for parents that are applying for those screen programs and their child does not have an exam score, many of these schools also look at other pieces of information ranging from recommendations, an interview. Some of them give an entrance exam or an essay. Some of them do sort of recommendations from teachers. They do try to get as full a picture of the child as possible. Each school that's screened has its own administration process for their admissions. So I cannot tell you for sure how they will factor in the absence of a test score. If that's something that you're concerned about, it's going to vary from school to school. The third area where folks have expressed concerns is a federal rule that requires schools to have at least 95% of their kids tested. And that's why there's also a makeup date for the exam, so that if kids are sick, there's an opportunity for them to get tested. The reason for this federal rule is that they did not want, when there were accountability consequences for how you do on this test under federal law, they did not want a school to just say, okay, we'll just test our strongest kids, and we won't give the test to everyone else. That's why that 95% rule is in place. Under federal law, if a school dips below 95%, it means they do not meet their target, and they could be identified by the state as either a priority or focus school. Now, the state does not just look at participation rates. They also look at achievement data for the school as a whole before they make those decisions. And so it's not definite that the state would classify a school in one of those two categories as a result of this, but it is possible. I would also say that when we look at the state's priority and focus school list every year, we are very careful, and we don't only look at what they have said, we look at all the information that we have about the school. And when there's an intervention in a school that's struggling, that's based on looking at the test score data, the state data, what the community is saying, what the quality review says, what the superintendent says, what the network staff say. There's a big process around that. And so I can assure you that no decision would ever be made on intervening in a school that's low performing purely based on this 95% participation rate. That said, it does potentially impact the state's accountability. We put up a frequently asked question document on the DOE website last week. I have copies here that I'll leave with the CEC members, but if you go to the DOE website, you can find that, and I'll make sure that Sam has the web address so he can post it on the Facebook page as well. This is a living document. There are a lot of folks who have questions. We've tried to answer most of the questions I think people have. If your questions are not answered tonight, or you'd like to see those questions on the FAQ, you have contact information for me as well as the folks who are managing that document for me on our website. So we will continue to add to it and add additional clarity wherever that comes up.